Is there a case against Andrea Snyderman? Welcome back to In Session. I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you with us this afternoon as we look at this issue, which is in the middle of the Hemi Newman trial. It absolutely is. That is the connection here. Rusty Snyderman, victim. Hemi Newman, defendant. What's the connection? Andrea Snyderman. But what's her role in all of this? Is she pulling the strings of Hemi Newman, manipulating someone who's maybe insane and making him do this? Is she conspiring with Hemi Newman and getting him to kill her husband so they can be together and get the $2 million? Or is she just innocent? And she, too, a victim of Hemi Newman here. Joining me to talk about all this, criminal defense attorney Meg Strickler. Meg, great to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, and with me in studio, senior trial attorney for Fulton County, Georgia Public Defender's Office, Richard Marks. I know that name. Mike, where do I know that name, Mark? Oh, Tracy Marks.
Hey, what can I say?
The expert.
That's right. I married up. What can I say?
Okay, that's your wife. You married up, absolutely.
My claim to fame.
And Mike Brooks is also with us, our in-session law enforcement analyst. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Let me go ladies first here. Meg, and this is, let's start right with Andrea Snyderman. In this trial, she says there was no affair, okay? We got testimony from people that they're dirty dancing, groping each other. We've got these incriminating emails going back and forth. We've got all these things indicating to most people that there was an affair. If she's lying about the affair, how much does that help build the case against Andrea Snyderman for the murder of her husband?
What hurts her most across the board is everything she's done on the record, on the cameras. Everything she did and said hurts her. When she says there was no affair, that hurts her credibility 110%, because like you just said, there is many a testimony of Hemi and Andrea hanging out in hotels and various different places doing things that looks like an affair was occurring. So, of course, her hands are dirty in this. And I very much look forward to this trial, because this one's going to be really interesting.
All right, Richard, you know what I hear from defense attorneys a lot? Is, well, just because you're having an affair doesn't make you a murderer. It's a long, long, long leap from infidelity to murder.
Absolutely. Not only that, but just because she had an affair and is a liar and has zero credibility doesn't translate into, hey, I'm a murderer. And I think that's why the defense actually has a pretty good defense, at least when it comes to the serious major charges. This state has a slam dunk case for the, when it comes to perjury, false statements, she's guilty, no question.
Because it seems pretty clear, it's not just me and Mike, right, that she's having this affair?
Absolutely, you're right. She's having the affair, there's no question. But what happened is this, she backpedaled herself into a corner, and now she can't get out. She's got no credibility, but the strength of the defense is this. They don't have proof that she conspired with Hemi Newman to kill her husband. That's what they don't have. They don't have...
What about that? And then the statements after the shooting, she knew that there was a shooting before anyone else knew that there was a shooting.
It's not proof. That's the problem. If you look at all of the emails, all of the correspondence that took place between Andrea Snyderman and Hemi Newman, at no point do you see anything reflecting some kind of a plan to take out her husband. And I think that's the strength of the defense. The defense's options are pretty clear. They have to admit perjury, she's guilty. False statements, she's guilty. But that's not the same as being a murderer.
And I know, I can hear the line already. Of course she's going to lie about the extramarital affair, right? People lie about sex. Ask Bill Clinton about that, right? And that's something the jury can. But Mike, you said exactly what I wanted to say. She knew that he had been shot before anyone told her, and we've got two witnesses.
Exactly.
And two witnesses.
And the calls from Hemi and the texts from Hemi to her that morning. And I guarantee you guys, and Meg, there is more that the prosecution has that we haven't seen in this trial yet. I guarantee you.
But stuff is coming out in this trial. And Meg, if I'm the prosecutor, I mean, I'm chomping at the bit to get that information in front of this jury. My goodness. She knew he had been shot before anyone said he had been shot? Mm-hmm. How would she know if she wasn't conspiring, if she didn't have knowledge? I love that argument.
And also, this current trial where Hemi Newman's looking like he's insane, I do think they have proven a little bit of shakeability there. I mean, he's not dealing with a complete deck. Now, I'm not going to get to the legal insanity aspect. I'm just showing that Andrea Snyderman is the master manipulator here. And that shows in a multitude of her actions. Remember when she hugged that witness? What was that? All of these things show that she's the stronger mind, stronger one, and she was the one who was married to the fella that was killed.
All right.
Hurts her case.
Richard, you brought out all the charges. Let's go through them, Richard. Let's put them up on the screen for the folks at home. The charges against Andrea Snyderman, okay? What do we got first? Violation of the Georgia RICO Act. You admit it? Don't admit it.
No, because if you look at the charges, the RICO Act is inextricably connected to the murder charge.
Okay, so you can't admit that.
Same with the insurance fraud. I mean, it all has to do with that plan to get together with Hemi Newman and to kill her husband.
So you don't admit that.
No,
Criminal attempt to commit murder,
no,
you're not going to admit that.
deny.
Malice murder, deny.
Absolutely.
Insurance fraud?
Deny.
Deny.
Because that, too, is related to the whole idea of trying to kill him to get money. Absolutely. Deny
So you
that.
just admit the Casey Anthony charges here, right? Making a false statement.
False statements and perjury, and that's it. And here's the thing. If you admit that, you gain some credibility with the jury. So if I'm trying a case from a tactical standpoint, I
Right.
want some credibility. She's admitting to the small stuff because, after all, it's clear she's got no credibility. She is a liar.
I love this argument that you're making, though, and it's a great argument. You're a great attorney.
And I like
I'm
that
getting
Casey Anthony.
Yeah. But here, Mike, here's what we're talking about. In order to gain credibility, she's got to admit that she's a liar.
Yeah, basically. I have to.
But it may work.
Yeah, we've seen it work
We
before.
were in Orlando,
Yeah,
weren't we?
exactly. So, no, it has worked before, and then they're going to have to rely on the other witnesses who had other statements. You know, are they reliable, and other circumstantial pieces in this particular case to put together the case against her on the other ones. You know, the RICO statute. I mean, that's but it's the Georgia RICO statute. I don't know how that differs from the federal RICO statute.
Well, the thing.
Well, I can explain that.
Well, here's the thing. The defense really has to nail that 10 peg into the ground. And that 10 peg is this: reasonable doubt, reasonable doubt. Is there reasonable doubt? And I think the defense can win on the bigger charges if they persuade the jury that the state has no proof. There's nothing solid, there's nothing concrete, and that's their ticket to victory.
Who's going to be their big witness for the prosecution? Hemi Newman.
I don't know. And here's
Maybe.
no. His lawyer is saying that Hemi Newman will say there was no conspiracy if he's called. So I think he's a defense witness, but I think neither side's going to have the guts to put him up on the stand.
I agree with you. I think he's a double-edged sword for both sides.
Yeah.
And the rule of thumb
would
is
be-
if you have a double-edged sword, you do not put that witness up. That's the rule of thumb. And it's a maximum.
Well, that's a rule of thumb that was
That'd be
broken by
worth the
Joel
price of
Brodsky
admission.
in the last trial.
That's exactly right.
The Drew Peterson. Meg, here's another thing that came up during the testimony we were watching today, and that was from the psychological expert for the prosecution speaking with Hemi Newman, and Hemi Newman told her that he knew Rusty Snyderman's schedule because Andrea told him Rusty's schedule. Why would you be telling your boss your husband's schedule? I mean, from my perspective, that pretty much tells me that there's some interaction, some conspiracy going on there.
What's going to be interesting when this case is tried is placing the building blocks one by one, showing what was occurring here. And that's a perfect example of why would Hemi Newman know his schedule? Why? And you just pound that, but slowly you build it up, and then your closing argument, you slam it as part of the prosecutor's view here. And I think they're going to have a very good case because all of these charges are attempt and the conspiracy. It's not so, as we all know, she didn't have the gun in her hand. But that's why I really like this indictment. It's really well thought out legally. So they do have a good chance of getting a conviction on a multitude of charges, perhaps not all of them, but enough to put her in prison for being a participant in Rusty Snyderman's death. I mean, I know I'm a defense attorney here, but this one I think is slam dunk. And you know me, I don't tend to always be on the prosecutor's side.
That's for sure.
This one I do.
I say that. Hey, Richard, I want to play for you that little piece of testimony and get the defense take on how you deal with it. Take a listen.
Sure.
He planned to go through the garage and to shoot and kill Mr. Snyderman and then go back to work because he knew Mr. Snyderman was coming home to work from the home office.
Did he say how he knew that?
He didn't say. I mean, he knew a lot from his discussions with Andrea about what it was that Mr. Snyderman did and when he did it.
All right, so he's getting the info from Andrea Snyderman, obviously. And this was for the first attempt, the attempt where he didn't go through with the murder because things happened.
Right. And that's where actually, and it's a bit of an ironic twist, the affair that she has with Hemi Newman could, in an ironic kind of way, help her defense in this respect.
Pillow talk?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. But here's the thing. It would be normal, assuming they're very close, they're having an affair, for him to know a lot of personal details, not only about her life, but about her children's lives and her husband's schedule, etc. And that's the angle to press. And
this is amazing.
That's the angle you've got to go with.
This guy's good, right? This guy's good. He's able to take an affair by Andrea Snyderman and turn it into something good, take her lies and turn it into something usable at trial.
You have to provide an alternative narrative, and that's what you got to do.
How long have you been doing this?
For a long time, but that's what you have to do. And here's the thing, Vinny, you got to understand something. There's always an alternative narrative, and the question is, which one fits the picture? And then at the end of the game, after you analyze all of that, you have to ask yourself, is there reasonable doubt? And if the answer is yes, then the law requires an acquittal. And that's the law of the land, as it should be.
I agree with that. Beyond a reasonable doubt is the standard of proof. That's about all I think I'm agreeing with you right now. But we're going to talk more about that. Is there a case against Andrea Snyderman? We're going to talk about it. We got our experts lined up. She's under house arrest.
Based upon all the facts and circumstances that were presented during this bond hearing, I am going to set a bond in this particular case, and I'm going to direct the defense to prepare a proposed motion for my signature. At this point in time, lawyers, I'm going to set a bond for Ms. Snyderman in the amount of $500,000.
We are going to go to trial in this case, Judge. Make no mistake. Andrea Snyderman is pleading to nothing. We expect that she will be exonerated at trial. She has every reason to believe she will be exonerated at trial, and she is going to come to court. She is not going to run away.
How about that? Andrea Snyderman is going to trial. She's not taking any plea deals. She's been charged. Right now we're in the midst of Hemi Newman's case. We're taking a look at that. But we will see Andrea Snyderman on trial, and you'll see it right here on In Session. But the question really is there a case against Andrea Snyderman? My guests are back with me. Let me go back out to Meg Strickler. Meg, Andrea Snyderman, does she testify at her own trial?
If it was my case, no way. She's already sunk her ship with what she says. So, But I want to point out something. As I practice in Atlanta, what I do is I test the strength of the state's case by what the bond is. And Judge Adams made that bond $500,000. Makes me think that the strength of the case is pretty strong. I mean, it's what my practice is. When a bond is that high, and she is
Richard's
somebody
shaking his head, Meg. Richard is just shaking his head at you.
Hey, I know Richard really well.
Too, no.
Richard and I are brethren. We are on kindred spirits here, and perhaps he does a little bit different because understand he practices in the jungle of Fulton County, which is slightly different than the jungle in DeKalb County. But I mean, and we can agree to disagree too, also, Richard, that this case does have strength, and John Petrie and his brethren will probably try this case, as you just heard, but there will be a guilty verdict with respect to some of those charges. That's my view.
All right. I agree with some of the charges.
Some of the charges,
yeah,
but not we're talking about the murder. We're talking about a woman accused of murdering the father of her children, a woman accused of murdering her husband, someone she went to college with. I mean, they're living the American dream. They have this gorgeous house in suburban Atlanta up in Dunwoody. Beautiful. They actually have 2 homes, $800,000 in the bank. They are living the life.
Right.
They're absolutely living the life. So how can you not have her take the stand? My goodness. You're accusing this woman that is living her dream with her husband and her children, and she's not going to get up on that stand and tell the jury, I didn't kill my husband?
I agree with Meg on that point. I would be reluctant to put her on the stand. First of all, her credibility is down the tubes already. So if you put her on the stand, what you're conveying to the jury is, look, here's a witness that I want you to believe in. I want you to agree with what she's saying. That's a hard sell. The better approach is to keep her off the stand and then point to the state and criticize the state for failing to prove the case. That's the preferable
You've got to
approach.
get the focus away from her.
Absolutely.
Well, that tells me that prosecutors may have a strong case here. if the defense is trying to distance themselves, Mike, from the defendant, then I think they've got a problem.
Well, look at her last performance on the stand. Is she going to hold up to cross-examination? Absolutely not. I mean, to direct prosecution, but no. She is not going to hold up to the prosecutor's questions on that stand. Look at last time. it blew up in her face, and she lied. And, you know, okay, admit the lies, but then put her on the stand again and let her lie some more? No, that's not gonna
I agree
happen.
with Mike on that.
Okay, but and I look at her and I'm wondering, is this someone, Meg? Do you think a defense attorney can advise strongly what to actually do? Because she's extremely bright, we know that, right? And it seems like she's very strong-willed. She has very strong opinions. Do you think this is someone who a defense attorney can sit down with and say, you know, you really shouldn't take the stand? Whereas if she wants to, she may force herself on that stand because ultimately it's her decision.
That's exactly right. What we do in real life is we advise our clients as best we can what we think our legal counsel should be. And ultimately the decision to testify is up to the client. But what I do personally is I send a multitude of letters. So it is in writing, my opinion, pages and pages and pages and pages upon pages of letters saying, don't do it, in so many different legal ways, so that my behind is covered should she get upset with me once she's convicted, having testified and then sunk her ship on her own. But then more importantly, she has something she can take home with her to read my opinion over and over and over so that she's understanding what she's doing. This is not a case where she should get up on the stand. And in my letter to her would be, here's Exhibit A where you said this, and here's where the cross-examination on Hemi Newman's trial where you did things that weren't real good. You did not reflect well to that jury even. And all of these things come out at trial. Hence, don't testify. And I would just say it over and over and over. And then ultimately, I think I would be persuasive in having her not testify.
Now, there was also something else that came up during Hemi Newman's trial, which is testimony from her friends and other people she spoke to saying that there was some trouble in the marriage. So now, how do you deal with that? Because prosecutors are going to want to put that up there. It's a troubled marriage. She has an affair. She wants to get rid of him. She wants the $2 million. She wants to be with Hemi.
Right.
She conspires with this guy. So how do you get in front of this jury if you don't put Andrea Snyderman on the stand, her side of it, her side that, no, I love this man.
Yeah.
I would never kill the father of my children.
The thing to do is you want to concede to as much as you can without conceding that she's guilty of murder. So what you do is you spin that in a way where you're saying, look, yeah, she had an affair with the guy. She loved the guy, but she had no clue he would go off the deep end and do what he did. And although perhaps she...
So that's your tact, is that, hey, okay, I had the affair. This guy now becomes some sort of fatal attraction, obsession deal.
Something like that. I think the thing is to emphasize that what she did not have what's called in legal terms mens rea. She didn't have the intent to have him kill her husband. And there's no proof that establishes otherwise. So that's the angle. So you're not trying to hide the affair because that's not going to win.
He's good, Mike. He's good. We got to keep him here so he doesn't get in the courtroom representing guilty people, because this is, I think, is the best way for Andrea Snyderman to deal with the whole situation, is to play Hemi Newman as this loose nut, or whatever you want to call it.
She's tried that already, Vinny, by saying, oh, he was basically a stalker. But when you sent over 198 pictures of you and your kids to your stalker, how's that going to play? Oh, no. Was he the stalker? And then she also says, when they were asking her about traveling, well, you booked the flights right next to her. Well, that's the way we traveled. And what people don't realize, this all happened over a 6-month period. 6 months!
Yeah.
That's no time at all.
That's quick. That's quick. So Meg, you take a look at all of that. You are convinced that there is a case against Andrea Snyderman.
I am, and I want to point out what Richard's trying to do is, I think it's Jason Young defense. Do you remember the defense in North Carolina, that case that In Session covered, where he was a scumbag? Okay, we defense, that was the argument was, hey, he's a scumbag. We admit it. He's an adulterer, he's a scumbag, but you know what? That's not enough to make him a murderer. That was the defense that they tried to raise in that case the second time. The first time, as you know, was a hung jury. But maybe that's what Richard's trying to say, and it's a good argument. What we want to say is, what Richard's trying to say is that we're trying to make it so that you look at whatever holes you can punch in the prosecution's case, and whatever hole that comes out during trial, we blow up as best we can as defense attorneys, and then at the end of the day, at the end of the trial, in our closing arguments, say, did they prove anything? And then hope. And hope that it works out well for Andrea Snyderman. But yes, my opinion stays the same.
All right.
I don't
you
think
say
this
there's
is a great
case. Richard, you say no case. Mike, you say there is a case.
I think so.
I say a case. So 3-1. But we need to be unanimous to get a conviction. Great to have you on the program. Thanks so much, Mike. Thanks, Richard. Thank you, Meg. A former Green Beret doctor convicted of murdering his pregnant wife and 2 daughters is getting a chance at a new trial. Our In Session team will bring you the latest details on his fight for freedom.